travel writer. Simon Calder joins us now from London. Simon, good to see you. You may be in London, but I do have to say I love your background. Very tropical indeed. All right. Many of us have spent the better part of the last year at home without traveling. So what does it mean for these travel bubbles to be finally opening up?
Well, it is a really significant move, of course, for Palau, for the people, very small numbers, as Natalie's report was saying, to go in, but a signal that actually we will be able to restore international travel carefully and slowly. And we've seen examples of it elsewhere in the world. While, of course, there's a huge difference between the infection rates in a lot of East Asia and the Pacific compared with, say, Europe and North America, it's still the case that actually British tourists are now being encouraged to visit Thailand. Anybody who's been lucky enough to have 2 vaccinations from July will be able to go to the island of Phuket, which is like Palau, an absolutely gorgeous tropical destination, and stay there for a week without any quarantine. And if they're still well, they can go and explore the rest. Every country which is like Palau, like Thailand, like Turkey, like many other Mediterranean countries, tourism dependent, is desperate to get tourists back, but the right sort of tourists, and of course imposing an awful lot of restrictions on those people. So the tourists we saw there at just about to board the flight for the 4-hour journey to Palau from Taipei, they will be required to take tests, to present certificates and so on. And this is between 2 really relatively safe COVID destinations. It's going to get a lot trickier when we get the kind of mass market tourism back in operation. But there are so many destinations who've effectively lost a year's worth of business, desperate for tourists. And it's simply a question of where you set the bar on deciding how much you will demand of your tourists in order to get them back.
Do you think price plays any role here? Because there is no doubt that opening up travel is definitely going to sort of revitalize a very much damaged, slumping tourism sector. But I was reading that these Taiwanese tourists that are traveling to Palau are going to be paying approximately 50% above what a 5-day itinerary would normally cost.
Oh, sure. And I'm sure that if you asked many of them, they would say we pay 100%, 300%. We'll pay whatever it takes. Just a tiny example from here in the UK, where the cruise industry is desperately trying to get back on its feet. Cunard, one of the most prestigious names in cruising, has just announced it's just put its UK only voyages on sale. You'll be able to go no further than kind of coastal waters, which wouldn't appeal to, I don't think, many people, but they've had their best day of sales for the past 10 years. There is a huge amount of pent up demand. And if you've got very, very small supply, as Palau has by allowing in only 100 or so people from Taiwan, you can effectively charge what you like. But we are very, very soon, I think, going to see something of a kind of arms race breaking out between different countries desperate to lure tourists in, especially those from places like Israel and indeed from the UK, where the vaccination program is going very well, because they will be perceived as being less of a risk to the local population than perhaps people from France, Germany, places in Eastern Europe and so on.
One of the first countries to start discussing this travel bubble way back, I think it was 9-10 months ago, was between Australia and New Zealand. That seems to have never really sort of gotten off the ground. It keeps on getting delayed.
You're absolutely right. This is one of the great mysteries. We've seen both Australia and New Zealand have tremendous success at combating COVID, effectively by making everybody who's coming into those island nations quarantine. But the trouble is, New Zealand has been kind of so perfect that they're very unwilling to let in Australia. And meanwhile, Australia even has rivalry between the different states. And so Western Australia has kept its frontiers closed to the rest of Australia for quite a lot of time. And whenever there's a little outbreak, say in the state of Victoria, then the barriers go up again. The trouble is for both those countries is that they do have a really important tourism sector. And at some stage, they've got to open it up. And it really wouldn't work for them to wait until globally COVID is under control. So I think they will open up that little corridor, and then maybe in time they will come up with ways to open up, particularly to the rest of East Asia, places like Taiwan, like Vietnam, Singapore, where they're actually doing pretty well at looking after the COVID numbers. But at the moment, it's everything is a mess. There's no agreement on any kind of global vaccine passport or certification, and that is desperately needed so that you just will then be able to have your medical details on your smartphone, and that is going to help to reduce the amount of hassle.
All right,
but at the
I'm
moment,
almost out of time. I'm almost out of time, but I do have to ask you before I let you go, when do you think we'll start seeing some signs of normality when it comes to global travel?
2022, but I think we will get used to quite a lot of tourism going ahead in the northern summer this year, particularly around the Mediterranean and perhaps across North America as well.
Simon Calder, very lovely speaking with you as always. Thank you very much, and the background is great, I do have to say. Thank you.